Ali Abulaban.
And please spell both of those names.
Aliabulaban.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Abulaban.
Good morning.
I want to start off by asking you just some basic background information. How old are you, sir?
I just turned 32.
On October 21st of 2021, how old were you?
29.
And on October 21st of 2021, were you married?
I was.
Who were you married to?
Anna Marie Abulaban.
Did you and Anna have a child together?
We do.
And what is her name?
Amira Aliana Abulaban.
On October 21st of 2021, how long had you and Anna been married?
About 5 years, but we had been together in total for just short of 7.
So married 5 years, but together for almost 7.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to talk to you now. We're going to go sort of chronologically, okay? I want to talk to you about growing up in your household. We heard from your mom yesterday, and I want to hear from you about what it was like for you. Okay? Who are your parents?
My father is Nasser Abulaban. My mother is Dalal Wara.
And that who the law is who testified yesterday. Is that right?
Yes,
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have an older half sister from a different mother. Her name is Amina. But from my parents, I'm the oldest. And then I have my sister Zainab, Sammy, Shireen.
Sammy is your brother.
Yes.
And you said that you are the oldest. In your household, growing up, Mr. Abulaban, as being the oldest son, does that have any particular significance?
In our culture, yes. However, in my household, I did not feel that I was held to that.
Okay, so let's back up just a minute. You said in your culture. What culture are you speaking of?
Middle Eastern, Arab culture.
Okay, so in that culture, what is the significance of being the firstborn son?
You're supposed to take place of your father. You're supposed to be the father when he's not there or at work or things of that nature. However, I was a lot more like my mother. And that posed a lot of problems.
So with that cultural aspect and then your own sort of experience, why did that pose problems that you were more like your mother?
As my mother had mentioned, very early on, we had this fear instilled in us that if we did something wrong, our father would find out. Or don't tell dad, things of that nature. So I wasn't sure why, but I was already scared of my father before I fully understood why. But part of having that fear was also part of what made me repulsed by wanting to be like him or not wanting to be like him. And I think it just kind of naturally bred into, we're just two different people.
When you talk about the fear of being, either your dad finding out, what are you talking about?
Could you bring your mic closer to you?
Oh, sure.
Please.
Can you hear me? Sorry. When you're talking about the fear that you had with your father finding out, what are you talking about?
Almost always, everything was an overreaction, in my opinion. Nothing was ever just a simple talking to. I mean, everything was just explosion, anger, chasing around the house, things of that nature.
Were you a victim of violence by your dad to you?
Yes.
Starting from about what age do you remember this happening?
I want to say like 10.
And in terms of the physical violence that began when you were about 10,
Maybe a little older, maybe about 11, 12.
and what sort of form would that take? What did that look like to you?
Most of the time, I wouldn't know why he's mad at me or what exactly he's. But he would just grab whatever's nearby, throw it at me, strike me, vacuum cables, shoes, things like that.
Was there a time with the vacuum cable that you were left with significant injuries?
Yeah. Yeah. You want me to explain that?
Yes.
Okay. I had wanted my mother to purchase something for me, something that I really wanted. It was Star Wars related. I'm big into Star Wars, but he didn't like the fact that it was kind of childish in his mind. I think I was about 14, 15. And his response to me pestering my mother to purchase this for me, I think it was a Darth Vader helmet that changes your voice, was to grab the vacuum cable and whip me repeatedly. And when I say whip, you could hear you can hear it. And that was the worst pain I've ever felt physically. I literally would beg him to stop, and he's asking me, "Why are you fucking crying? Why are you crying?" As he's whipping me, you know. But with my dad, he gets in these rages, he gets in these anger, but then he calms down, and then I was just trying to get context. I don't think he knew how much he was hurting me, is what I'm trying to say. But then I went to school the next day, and I guess I was drawing on one of the papers, and the teacher had pulled the back of my collar. I guess I didn't know I had brown welts all over my back, and she asked me, "Who did this to you?" And I said, "In our culture, we don't rat on our families. We don't." So I had made some stupid excuse like, "Oh, I was running through the forest and a bunch of tree branches were hitting me," just something I could make up on the spot.
Okay. And that was when you were about 14 years old?
Middle school or freshman year of high school. So whatever old I was.
In addition to those sort of examples of physical violence, was there emotional abuse in your household?
To me?
To you?
Yes.
For instance, would you be yelled at a lot by your father?
Yes.
About what type of things would end up with you being yelled at?
Wanting to go out, hang out with my friends, being out too long, or if my friends were all spending the night at somebody's house, I was never allowed to. So I would always, vent my frustration of, how come they can do it? I can't, And he would constantly say things like, "Oh, I'm not going to raise my kids American. We're Muslim." Like we would say in Arabic, "Ihna Muslimin," like we're Muslims. Sorry, that's Arabic. Well, it's Arabic, but it was IHNAMUSLIMEEN, which means we're Muslim. We don't do these things. We don't do these things. And that was very troubling for me because I'm first generation American. I wanted to be American. I wanted to be how my friends were.
So the type of emotional abuse then seems to be stemmed from kind of a push and pull in the household about you wanting to be American and him wanting you to remain traditionally Muslim?
Yes, and Arab.
And Arab. Okay.
They kind of go hand in hand a little bit.
What about verbal abuse?
The name calling. I mean, it's really just the name calling. It doesn't matter who's around. I don't think it would have been half as bad if he did it in private. But it's just no matter who's there. It's just like the way he would call me would startle me. I mean, he wouldn't say, "Hey, Ali, can we talk?" It's Ali. So I'd jump every day. Every time he called me, I would jump, and I naturally just have this reaction to just jump. And it always feels like I'm in trouble. And he would do it in front of my friends. He would talk shit about my friends. "Look at your friends. They're so stupid. Just like you. You're stupid." I mean, I don't know what he wanted from me. I don't know what it was he was looking for me. And that was very hard for me.
Did it feel, as you were growing up, that this was directed more towards you than any of the other children?
They had their own fair share of abuse for various other reasons. But in regards to me being the oldest, he would throw... See, my younger brother, Sammy, he's younger than me by a couple years, maybe 3. He would throw it in my face that because Sammy's more like him, that Sammy's what I should have been.
So Sammy was more like your dad,
100%.
and so you should be more like Sammy.
More so, he would brag about his relationship with Sammy to make it seem like, oh, look at me and Sammy versus me and you, kind of thing.
And when we're talking about witnessing violence, the whole spectrum of violence, emotional, physical, verbal, between your mother and your father, did you witness any of that?
Yes.
Can you kind of just paraphrase, tell us what it was that you remember seeing your father do to your mother?
Well, my father was the sole provider. He sometimes, my earliest memories, he had always worked 2 jobs. So when he came home, he was obviously stressed out. But my mom would do this thing where she would go, Dad's home, Baba's home, Baba's home. Baba means like dad in our, Baba's home, everybody. It's like, well, what the fuck do you want us to do about that? Like, we'd freak out. We'd run to our room. I don't know. But we later realized he would want things to be a certain way when he comes home. He would say the kids are too loud or dinner's not cooked properly. And next thing you know, he's chasing my mom around the house or insulting her. And yeah.
And this was witnessed by you.
Yeah, I used to sit on the couch and have my sister in my right arm and my little brother, and we would just like kind of cry, seeing them throw things around the house.
Do you remember a time where, as your mom testified yesterday, that she would run from him and try to hide in the house somewhere?
Yeah, one time she hid in our bedroom with us and locked the door, and he was just beating on it, like threatening to break it down. Just stuff like that.
And this, witnessing this happening to your mom, in your memory, how old were you when you first can recall this happening in your household towards your mom?
Less than 10?
And as far as you remember, how long did that go on towards your mom?
The physical stopped around, like she had said, around like the age of 40-ish. But the verbal never changed. So yes, in his defense, he has calmed down. He has become more religious, but I'm not sure that he realizes that the things he says are still.
I would just ask for the last portion to be stricken if I'm not sure he understands the things.
Basically, what's stricken is his father's belief.
So in your memory and what you have seen for yourself, the physical violence continued until she was in her 40s. Is that right? Or about 40?
No, yeah.
But sort of the verbal and emotional continued even up till now.
Yeah, even with us. I mean, in our adulthood.
Do you think that anything that you witnessed with this, the way your father would sort of say your name and you would jump, and the physical violence towards you, physical violence towards your mother that you witnessed, do you think that that had any impact on you in the way that you conducted yourself in relationships with other men?
Yeah, I mean, because of the belittling, like God forbid if I ever said I was a man in front of my dad. I mean, he's the man, he's the provider. Nobody can compete with him. And you know what I mean? I wasn't allowed to call myself a man. He would always degrade, oh, you don't work as hard as me. You just joke around and you want to do stupid things and you're not my son, you're your mother's son. I mean, when you hear stuff like that, how do you expect yourself to be comfortable in your own skin as a man going out into the world? So I had a very big problem with anybody who's in a position of authority. Not police. I'm not talking about police. I'm talking about like teachers, professors, or even like my supervisors. If anybody was a manager of me, like, you know, we met Cliff the other day or yesterday. The guy is such a sweet guy, but I was so scared to even say hi to him. Good morning, sir. Like, I would think of ways to run past his, oh, look busy, you know, so I can just get past his office so I don't have to say hi. Just that level of anxiety just freaked me out and it controlled me. It ruled me.
What about your relationships, not just with men, but in romantic relationships?
Well, another thing in our culture, we're not really allowed to date. So that wasn't really a thing. I I consider Anna to be my first real relationship.
Now, you talked about that your dad would get upset about you kind of joking around. Was joking and making people laugh, was that a big part of who you were as an adolescent?
Yeah, that's how. So like I lacked a lot of social skills. I didn't know how to the process of meeting somebody and opening up slowly. I'm kind of just like a I would regurgitate everything about me all up front. You know what I mean? But I had noticed that through doing voices or imitating things, cartoons or things that people like, they would like me in turn, and so I kind of just stuck with it, and it helped me feel like of some value.
This sort of approach to your life of trying to make people laugh and trying to fit in that way, did it also cause you problems?
Yeah, I kept getting in trouble in school, just the outbursts or being the class clown. Um, but also, I at the time I didn't know when enough is enough, or when somebody's not laughing. So I have gotten beat up a couple times.
In school?
Yeah,
Okay. Was that something that led to, you said beat up, a physical fight in school?
yeah,
And that was something where was an example of you not knowing when to stop when people aren't laughing.
yeah. Because to me, it's like I don't see how somebody could be offended by what I'm trying to do or how I'm presenting myself. But again, that goes with like experience of looking at things from other people's perspectives, which I didn't have at the time. So
You talked just a moment ago about being in school and having outbursts and things like that. Do you recall a time when you were in high school that you went to see a doctor?
yeah, yeah for ADHD.
Right, for ADHD?
Hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And can you describe for us sort of the symptoms that you were experiencing during this adolescent time period that later was diagnosed as ADHD?
Well, I mean, the common theme was, when you get your like report cards, there's like a little comment on the side by the teacher, like failure to pay attention, failure to complete assignments, things like that. So we noticed a pattern, and I think we had heard something about ADHD on TV or something like that, and it kind of resonated a little bit that maybe I might have that. So
And did you get medication from the doctor?
yeah, so they made my family fill out like a questionnaire about how their evaluation of me, and then I did one of myself. And then they prescribed me, I believe it was called Vyvanse, 75 milligrams, I think.
And did you take that medication as prescribed for some period of time?
I did.
And if you can recall, what sort of impact did that medication have on you?
In the beginning, it was like a miracle. I mean, I was full of energy. I'm like fully in the moment. I started doing chores around the house just purely because I had extra energy, and I felt more in the moment. Yeah.
When you were having those feelings of, what was described as ADHD, describe for us what that felt like in you.
Somebody would tell me something, and I'd be like, yeah, I get it, totally get it. I go to sleep, wake up the next day, it's like I never had that conversation. Um, wouldn't be able, I'd get bored easily, just like I would start doodling instead of doing the assignment. I was very heavily into video games because it allowed me to kind of just zone out, not focus on the world around me, just zone out into the game. Um, I guess just like my situational awareness was not there.
In this sort of time period, you said you took the medication, but then at first it made you feel very focused and sort of on track. But then did something else happen with the medication after you continued to take it?
Yeah, I started to form a dependency on it. At the time, I was working as a cashier at Best Buy, and I had forgotten to take the pill in the morning. And I don't know why, but it was like this devastation, this feeling like, oh my God, I cannot operate. I remember a family came up to the register. They had a cart full of stuff. I couldn't even type my password, or I was just bugging out. I looked crazy. I'm just my manager had to come in and be like, "Hey, move aside." Even the family's like, "What's wrong with this guy?" You know, just because I couldn't take that pill, I no longer was able to like function properly.
So you stopped taking the medication.
Not yet. I had continued just a little bit longer, and then it wasn't until my family noticed I had stopped talking. I would just sit down like a statue, not do anything, not moving. And yeah, my dad was like, he took the whole pill, and just, the whole bottle, and just dumped it. He's like, "You're not taking that shit anymore." So
In addition to the ADHD symptoms that you were feeling, do you recall feeling during this time period of early adolescence into early adulthood any other things that now you believe were related to your mental health?
yes, so I think at every stage, whether it's middle school, high school, I experienced to some extent, whether I knew it or not at the time, I experienced a disassociation with the rest of. I kind of felt like people were able to do things that I wasn't allowed to do, kind of like just the way they would describe their relationships with their parents. Like they would joke, like, I could curse at my dad and it's cool, you know? It's like, oh, I could do whatever the fuck I want. My dad's not going to say shit to me. And I'm like, my dad will kill me. So I was like, I can't do that stuff, you know? So I always felt like, well, how come it seems like everybody else's parents are so much cooler, you know? But it also, mental health wise, it felt like I wasn't able to interact the same way they were. I felt like I was behind.
Behind, like socially, or behind in the way you were able to, you said interact. So,
Both. Well, it's like I noticed that certain friends that I had known for a while, they'd start dating, and I would ask questions like, "Well, wait a minute, when was I supposed to start doing that? Like, did I miss that mark?" Or they would do sports, and I'm not into sports, so I would always be hard on myself. Like I would have this like, kind of like my dad's voice in my head for when he's not there. I would hear like, "Oh, Ollie, you're stupid. You're not like them," you know, things like that.
during this time period, you described playing video games a lot, but were you also doing creative things, making videos yourself during this time period?
I think before the whole social media craze, we had a video camera, so I would do stuff like that with like my sisters and brothers. We would reenact things. So
Do you remember as you were doing that feeling particularly euphoric or high during those moments?
I literally felt like that was the only thing I'm good at. Like, and especially because of the responses I would receive from people. "Oh, you're so good at that. You're funny." You know, that's what I was craving. It's like a little bit of a. I don't need like recognition. I don't need praise. I just wanted to feel like I'm somewhat. I have something. I feel valuable. You know.
Did you suffer, as you look back now, were there times when you were growing up and into adolescence and early adulthood that you were, remember feeling symptoms of depression?
Yeah, I mean, I constantly struggled with the idea like, what is it that I'm doing wrong in regards to you know being with, like my relationship with my father. He always had something to say about everything that I did. "Oh, you don't work hard enough." Okay, well now I'm working. Okay, well you don't pay me enough. You don't help me with the bills enough. Oh, okay. Well, how much do you want? These are
Overruled.
sorry. I mean, these are real conversations. So,
And so when you're looking back and thinking about sort of these symptoms that you associate with your father saying these things to you, sort of these belittling and name calling things, do you think that this led to feelings of insecurity within yourself
100%.
and insecurity in where you stood in the world? Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah, especially after I graduated high school. A lot of my friends were taking a break, you know, like maybe a year period to not jump into college. I wanted to do that. I wasn't allowed to. I mean, I was dragged to the nearest community college and forced to sign up. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I was good at. I never researched into it. I mean, I didn't know what to do with my life, to be honest.
Did you notice insecurities within your relationships with friends and family members?
Yes. Um, I would try to be like them. Like, let's say if they wanted to smoke weed, for example. Um, I necessarily never really liked doing it, but when I did do it, I noticed it wouldn't affect me the same way that it would affect them. They'd laugh, they'd get the munchies, they're joking, they're playing guitar. Me, I'm just berating myself in my mind, completely disassociated. I can't even focus on a conversation. I'm saying mean things about myself. I'm judging myself. It's like it increases the anxiety. It increases all those social insecurity.
At some point, Ollie, you just mentioned that you were dragged to the nearest community college, but you did not stay long in community college. Is that right?
No, I couldn't focus.
And you ended up joining the military. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you have a binder that's got like a pink cover? Okay. If you could go ahead and open that up for me, please.
Okay.
The very first photo that you see in there, do you recognize that photo?
Yeah.
And is it marked D1?
Yes.
What do you recognize that photo to be?
That is me on the flight line of Kadena Air Base in uniform.
Oops, that's not the photo you saw. Hold on 1 second, sorry. I'm not sure why this is not.
Might be in the wrong.
There we go. Sorry about that, everyone. Need to show you my swimsuit photo. Okay. So here we are. Is this the photo you have in front of you?
Yes.
And you mentioned that this is you on the Kadena Air Force Base on the runway. Is that what you said?
Yeah, where the planes land. We had a festival.
How old were you, Ali, when you joined the military?
21, but I think I was 22 in this picture.
Was there some sort of how is it that you ended up joining the military?
So I was obviously in my early 20s, still living with my dad. The same routine of me not having any motivation, not knowing what to do with my life, going from job to job. I mean, my father and I, we had started getting physical, and he would get into the habit of kicking me out and then pulling me back in, kicking me out. You know, I'd go to one of my aunts, and he'd yell at my aunt, "Don't let him stay at your house." Well, I have no choice but to come back. You know, so it's just this. Can I give you a quick rundown how I joined the military?
Say that is my next question.
So we were talking about during this time period before joining the military, you were living with your father, and it sounds like things were getting worse in that relationship.
Yeah, I realized that I have to remove myself from that home.
And so ultimately you decided to join the military. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you have to do some sort of basic training for it?
Yes. So after I took the ASVAB, went through MEPS, which is Military Entrance Processing Station. I was stationed to San Antonio, Lackland Air Force Base for basic military training.
Part of your military training, did that involve the use of firearms?
So during basic training, no matter what your job is, there is a week where you do live fire training. It covers everything from weapons handling, proper handling, weapon safety, and basic military strategy.
Was this for all sorts of different firearms, like handguns and then like larger guns?
Yes, anything from Beretta M9 pistol to M4A1, which is a semi-automatic rifle, to the M245 Bravo or 249 Bravo. It's a machine gun. It's huge. Yeah.
After that sort of military training, the, boot camp sort of experience, what happened from there? Where did you go with the military?
So once we all graduated and became airmen, everybody would be stationed to a base that is respective to where they would learn their job that they specifically were there for. So basic training is not about your job. It's about just being an airman, being in the military, breaking you down and building you back up. So everybody else got to go to all these cool bases, but me, I had to take 2 left turns on a bus, and I was right there at the police academy.
Was that something that you chose, or was that chosen for you to go to the police academy?
I initially wanted to go into Intel because I knew, like my father, I'm good at IT, information systems, computers. But he had told me that the waiting period would be over a year. But because of the circumstances at home, I didn't have that time. So I had asked him, I said, what's going to get me in right now? And he looked at me and he went, you want to be a cop? I said, sign me up.
So that's how you ended up at the police academy for the Air Force.
Yes.
How was there special training associated with being a military police officer?
Yes.
Was that more firearms training?
Not exclusively. I mean, most of it follows, it goes through different phases. Initially, you learn law enforcement procedures, basic traffic stops, canine handling, what to look for, to see if somebody's armed or things of that nature. Just it puts you into the mindset of what police officers look for on a day-to-day basis. Weapons training is a part of it, but it's not the sole purpose of being a police officer.
At some point, you ended up going from the police academy to Japan. Is that right?
So once I completed tech school, that's what we call it, tech school. Once I completed that and I got my badge, I was stationed to Kadena Air Base, Okinawa, Japan.
In Okinawa, you were at a time, was this a good time for you? Did you feel like you were fitting in the military?
Initially, it was beautiful. It was amazing. I mean, the culture, the people, all that, everything was beautiful. I was proud to be in the military. I'm still proud of my service. Things started to go, I started to fall behind.
Fall behind in what sense?
When you join basic training, right? When you're in basic training, everything is done together. Everybody is at the same place at the same time. You eat at this time. Everything's scheduled. So nobody can fall behind. But once you get to your career path, once you're on the job, well, now you're standing with people who are like 3-4 degrees rank higher than you. And I don't know if I should stand at attention, or I don't know if I'm allowed to talk to this person because of his rank. So the social anxiety started to kick in, and I just shut down because I didn't know who I could talk to or who I wouldn't, because in basic, you're not supposed to talk to staff sergeants. They're the ones yelling at you like, move, 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 you know? But now people are just shooting the shit with them. And so I didn't process that I too could do that.
So when you started to fall behind, was that in sort of socially within the military ranks falling behind?
Yeah, I noticed some of the guys that I went through basic training with, they eased in so easily, and they're best friends, and I kind of beat myself up about that. I'm like, why can't I do that, you know?
At some point, did you begin to drink heavily in the military?
Yes. I'm not a fan of drinking, but I had picked it up because it helped me sleep better. It helped me we worked very long hours in the military, 12 hours a day, sometimes overtime. But I picked up drinking because I didn't have anything else to do. I was alone.
At some point, did you meet a man named Sean Torres?
Yeah.
How did you know Mr. Torres?
I knew of him because he was of the same job in the same squadron we were at, but on a different shift. We didn't work on the same shift. We didn't see each other every day. So, but anybody who's not married or is below a certain rank, we all have to live at the barracks, which are like dorms. So, I mean, I would see him go from the parking lot to the dorms here and there.
Did the two of you, at this time, where you're just sort of seeing him, did you ever socialize together?
He approached me the first time. I was at this section right next to the dorms called the smoke pit, where, I used to smoke. And I was smoking, and Sean gets out of a car with two women, which I later learned to be Anna and Julia. And yeah, that was the first time I'd ever seen Anna, and it affected me.
Did you know from seeing them together or from a later interaction that they were together in a relationship, Anna and Sean?
I kind of put two and two together because I had seen her with him quite frequently go from the parking lot to his dorm, you know? But also I had a friend named Henderson who he prided himself in knowing the scoop of what's going on with everybody. So he had told me that was Sean's girlfriend.
At some point, after this sort of initial recognition of Sean and Anna and Julia, were there times when you would go out socially with this group of people?
No, so that's I was not part of their group. So the first, can I elaborate more on when Sean approached me, the first time I interacted with him?
Well, let me stop you there for
Okay.
just a second. Okay. So it sounds like you described for us seeing Sean and Anna while you were at the smoke pit.
Right.
And did you and Sean talk at that moment?
So the first time I saw them, they just walked. But again, when that happened another day, he saw me, did like an about face, turned and followed me with Anna. And he came to smoke a cigarette with me just to chat with me. Yeah. He shared some advice.
And so back to whether there was a time where socially you went to bars or parties or things like that with Sean or Sean and Anna.
No, I was doing that on my own with my buddy Henderson. I only had one friend. I had two friends, but I hadn't met him yet. So it was me and Henderson. We were both single guys. We wanted to go dress up nice and go to the club, During that conversation with Sean, I had told him, I said, hey man, I see you with a lot of friends. I'd like to hang out with you guys because I'm new to this island. He's like, yeah, don't worry, we'll get you in. But he never invited. So it never happened.
So they had sort of their own group. You were not a part of that.
No.
You did not go out with them.
No, I didn't.
You went out to bars and clubs with your friend Henderson.
Correct.
Were there times that you were out with Henderson that you saw Sean and Anna together?
Yes, so we were at this club called Psycholo. We were there first. We had our own table and everything. And then next thing you know, Sean's entourage comes in. Julia was there, Anna was there, a couple other women, a couple other guys. And that was when I had, told Henderson, I'm like, oh, hey, that's her. Like, I had told him that I had seen her and that I thought she was very beautiful. And he's like, that's Anna, bro. That's everybody wants to get with her. Don't even try it, And
And so,
I wanted to say hi to them, so we eventually walked up to the group.
so this night you remember you were at the bar first, they came later, and you walked up to Anna. Did you introduce yourself?
I didn't walk up to Anna, I walked up to Sean.
Did you at some point end up dancing with Anna this night?
Yeah, so when I spoke to Sean, I was hanging out with them, just trying to be cool with them. I saw it as an opportunity to be friends, and he had recommended that I go talk to Julia, saying that she's single, and I tried. It didn't go well. So I came back and was talking to Sean again. He's like, hey, do you like dancing? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, Anna loves to dance. Go dance with her. My red alarms was going off. I'm like, this sounds like a setup, But Anna had already grabbed me and pulled me to the dance floor. So
Were there times after this night that you would hang out with this group socially?
no. Oh, well, with Sean?
Yes, with Sean.
No.
At some point, you learned that Sean had left the military. Is that right?
I didn't learn it when it happened because, like I said, he's on a different shift. He wasn't that involved in my life. I actually learned that once I started talking to him. But yes, I learned he was discharged for DUI and getting arrested off base.
So when, at some point you saw Anna alone on base?
Yeah, I was. So part of the duties is security forces. So that's the official title of what we are: security forces, which is military police. When you're a low ranking, as I was only an E2. We start off as gate guards. We check IDs on the military installations, make sure we salute officers. We make sure whoever's entering the base is allowed to enter the base. Well, one day, Casey, who you've seen here, she pulls up to the gate with Anna, and this is the first time I had seen Anna since that dance, and that was quite some time. And I had gotten excited. I was like, "Hi, Anna," and she looked at me kind of like, "Do I know you?" So I thought that was weird. But yeah, I saw her. I asked for their IDs. I noticed hers was expired by 2 years, which is pretty extensive.
Hers being Anna's?
And yeah, Anna's military. It was like a dependent card, meaning one of her relatives has to be in the military. It was expired, and at that point, we have to pull them over, confiscate the ID, and it issued them a citation. But yeah, I wasn't gonna do that to her. But I saw it as an opportunity. So I said, "Hey, can you please pull over for me?" And they're like, "Are you fucking serious?" Like, they didn't expect me to do that. I went back, I grabbed my ticket book, and I wrote my phone number, and I gave it to her.
At some point, did you and Anna begin communicating?
Yeah, after some time, I received a friend request on Facebook. And it didn't click at the time because I didn't know her whole name. That it was her. It says, and her last name was Macedonio at the time. You want me to spell that? Okay. Anna Macedonio would like to add you as a friend. And I was working. I was in the truck next to the plane, and I'm ecstatic. I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Anna. She's adding me." So, yeah.
After that ad, did the two of you begin communicating over Facebook or Skype?
Well, it started off in Facebook. At the time, for some reason, I thought it would be better if we started talking through video chat on Skype. So we started doing that daily.
This was before the two of you were sort of in any sort of official defined relationship. Is that right?
No, we were just talking. We were just enjoying every moment of it. It was just, I didn't really care to think of what it was at the time because I was in such a dark place. I was very lonely. I had even called my dad one time and played with the idea of doing the traditional Arab marriage. I figured I really needed a partner. And it was around that time, and she popped up at like the perfect time.
You described for us just now feeling really lonely and you were in a bad place this time in the military. Was there something that was going on with you besides being lonely? Did something happen?
Well, first of all, the squadron, our shift is supposed to be like a family. Well, I had learned that there was a house party that I was not invited to. But one of the guys who told me, he's like, just come, dude. You work with us. Just come, And I show up, and I see one of my staff sergeants sitting down. Everybody's in normal civilian clothes. This is just a party. And a couple buddies of mine that I went to work with every day. And I sat with them. I had a beer in my hand. And it had been really troubling me as to like, why am I not fitting in? What's wrong with me? So I said, "Hey, Staff Sergeant, can I ask you a question?" He goes, "Sure." I was like, "Why does it seem like nobody likes me?" And he goes, "You want the truth?" And I'm like, fuck, what did I get myself into? I'm like, "Yeah. It's because you're a terrorist. You're a terrorist, Abulaban." And then my buddies are just like fucking party. I felt like it was like a disc jockey. Like the whole party just stopped. They all heard that shit. I was ice cold, man. I didn't have any words. I just got up and walked out. It was humiliating.
Do you think, is that something that you'd experienced in the military given that you were Arab?
Yes. I was one of the only Arab Americans in the military. So I guess in that culture, the military culture, it's people from all over the country. Some from the south, to the north, west, whatever. I noticed that in order for me to feel like I'm bonding with them, I had to allow them to make fun of my race. They had to call me Arab or Bin Laden, or I had to allow those things in order to Um, it also had an impact on the support of my family joining the military. Would you like me to go into that?
Let's leave that there.
Okay.
You mentioned at this time in the military, there was a lot of sort of poking fun at being Arab and being calling related to that. Did that extend to other races within the military?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but not as bad, I don't think, because they're very big on community. Um, None of that is so. It's called hazing. If you harass or joke or you play pranks that are too extreme, it's called hazing. It used to be very prevalent in the military, but they put an end to that. So anything that's considered making somebody feel less than equal is considered hazing. But I felt like I was the only race that they didn't really care, like, to enforce that.
You and Anna continued to talk over Skype and message over Facebook for about how long before you had like a first date?
2 months.
And during this time, was this a time where you and Anna would talk and just kind of get to know each other?
Yeah, we would. Well, I would work days, so we would work after we would talk after I'm done with work, and we would talk into the middle of the night until we'd fall asleep together on the Skype.
I'm going to show you. Do you see Defense 2 in the book in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
Is this the same photo that is that you're looking at as Defense, marked as Defense 2?
It also says B on it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
In here it says B, but
But is that the same photo?
it's the same photo. Yes, D2.
And this is you and Anna?
Yeah, we were at a country bar.
Is this in Japan?
Yes, we were playing pool.
Was this photo, if you know, was this photo taken after the two of you kind of officially were dating?
Yes.
How would you describe, in these sort of early days when you look back at this photo, how would you describe your relationship with Anna initially when you two first got together? Like together and like you were officially boyfriend, girlfriend?
It was perfect when it was her and I talking, or we would spend time together alone, or we would talk on Skype or on the phone. We really resonated with each other. Very early on, she wanted to introduce me into her friend group, which is a lot of the people we've seen. And I was very early on met with a lot of resistance. Casey, for example, she's like, "What are you doing? That's not Sean, Anna. You're still with Sean. Like, you're Sean's girl." But these are the types of things that I'd have to deal with just to spend time with this person in my life that I'm so enthralled with, that I wanted to spend every moment with her, and she seems like she wanted to, but she also had a life that was somewhat that I wasn't accustomed to, this social partying drugs thing.
So let me back up just a little.
Sure.
During this time, when you and Anna first began dating, were you aware that she was married to Sean?
No.
And so when her friends would say things like, "You're still Sean's girl," did you understand what they meant by that?
I took it as girlfriend, like.
But you were aware that Sean was not around anymore. He'd gone back to the United States.
No, she had told me, these are her exact words. He abandoned me. He got kicked out of the military. He was supposed to get her a visa, but he ended up going back with his ex-girlfriend in Pasadena. So she felt abandoned, she said.
And so it was clear to you that at least Cassie and maybe some of the other girlfriends really liked Sean and wanted Anna to be with Sean and not you.
Yeah, because that was their entourage at first. And then now it's kind of seemed like Anna was replacing Sean with me, in a sense.
Did that stop you and Anna from dating?
No.
Did that stop you and Anna from spending more time together and getting to know each other more?
No.
You mentioned that Anna had a different lifestyle that you weren't accustomed to, and then you said partying and social stuff and drugs. Is that right?
Yes.
Was Anna at this time a very social, outgoing person?
She had this grace about her, just energy, she was very comfortable in her own skin. And I really admired that because I was never comfortable in my own skin.
In conjunction with sort of this idea of who she was and how she presented herself, were there a lot of drugs associated with Anna and her lifestyle at the time?
Wasn't as bad. At the time, well, they were smoking weed, which is fine. But I later learned that they were popping this cough and cold medicine called Triple C, Coricidin. They were abusing it, taking 8 to 16 pills a day, and it just puts you in this trance-like state. And so there was things that I was cautious of, things that I.
So there were things that you were starting to learn about Anna and her group that you just described as feeling you were cautious about.
Yeah, I felt like. Well, her friends, first of all. I didn't choose to look at them as obstacles. That's just how they present themselves. It's like there would be days where me and Anna would have this great day. But then next day I'm at work and she's texting me, she's like, how do I know you're not just like other military guys and just going to leave me as soon as they station you somewhere else? I'm like, Anna, who's putting this in your head? Well, I was talking to Casey. These are the things that they would fill her head, and it just makes my job harder because I'm not the one giving her those vibes. I'm the one we're talking about, like, the future. And I think the types of conversations Anna and I would talk about was like, what do we see for the future beyond what are we going to do this weekend? What club are we going to go to? What bar are we going to do? What do we want to do? Like, and those were very beautiful, intimate moments.
When Anna's friends came into this trial and they testified, they talked about what they described as very controlling behavior that they witnessed from you towards Anna, and for some of them, you towards them. Do you recall those witnesses that testified?
I do.
When you look back, Ali, in that relationship at the time, do you see in yourself things that could be interpreted as controlling behaviors?
Yes.
Things like the things that they testify, like where are you going, what are you doing, who are you talking to? Do you remember hearing them say things like that?
I do.
And so when you heard that and thinking back to what was happening in your relationship with Anna at the time, explain to us what that was.
Keep in mind, I work 5 days a week, 12 hours, if I'm lucky. So I had no control over what Anna's doing during the day or who she's hanging out with. So I was never telling her what she can and can't do. The controlling part that I think that they are referring to is when we would go out to these clubs. I was just trying to answer.
It's okay.
Next question.
You heard them testify about things that you said and things that you did, that they say that they observed. Is that right?
Yes.
And in your memory of going back, don't speculate about what you think they thought.
No.
Talk about what the things were that you were doing with Anna or saying to Anna that they may have witnessed.
That's what I was just going to do.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there would be times when we're at a bar or at a club and it's 3 or 4 in the morning, and I would verbally say things like, hey Anna, do you think maybe we can call it a night? Because I'd like to hang out with you before I have to go back to work. I'd like to hang out one-on-one. Maybe talk in bed or something. Something like that, something intimate. They would get mad at me. Oh, let her. Why are you such a party pooper? It's like it's 3 in the morning. I have to go back to work at 8 in the morning. It's like.
And in the way you're describing it right now, you're using a voice that sounds kind of calm and easygoing, but when you look back, do you recall using like a level of voice or a tone of voice that was maybe a little bit more authoritative, commanding?
Yes. To Anna, yes. I would be like, hey, because in the beginning I would suggest it, but then it got to the point where I was like, all right, Anna, come on, it's time to go.
Were you getting frustrated?
Yeah.
We heard, in addition to witnesses testifying about those controlling behaviors, we heard from several witnesses who described seeing physical control and violence from you to Anna in the military. There were some general conversations about, seeing pushes and slaps and things like that, and there was a very specific incident that led to your discharge. Do you recall hearing testimony about that?
So those are two different things, but yes. For the first thing about like me pushing her friends. Is everything okay?
I'm sorry.
Everything okay?
Yeah, it was just some distracting noise. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So as far as the friend saying I pushed him, I don't recall these things.
Slapping,
Her friends?
slapping Anna.
I would never do that in public. I never did that.
There were times later in your relationships where you put your.
I have, yes, but I never did that in public.
Let me finish my question.
Sorry.
There were times later in your relationship where you put your hands on Anna. Is that right?
Yes.
There were times that you punched her.
Yes.
There were times that you pushed her.
Yes.
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 There were times that you maybe shoved her,
Yes.
and that was focused in San Diego. Is that right?
Yes.
So when you were talking just now about things that you did in distinguish between public and private, those things happened. Is that right?
In San Diego?
In San Diego,
Yes.
in your home. Is that right?
Yes.
Apartment.
Yes,
that you
yes,
and
yes.
Anna shared.
Yes.
We are talking right now. We'll get to all of that.
Okay.
But right now we are talking about in Japan.
Yeah.
And at that time in Japan, you just told us that's not something you would do in public. What do you mean by that?
I didn't mean that it's something I condone. I'm just saying that they did not witness anything like that
Because it didn't happen?
in public.
Did you put your hands on Anna?
Oh, no, not in Japan, no.
So you denied the things that you heard them say, pushing, slapping, leaving handprints on Anna in Japan. Is that right?
Correct.
Now, we know that there was an incident that led to, or I guess a couple of different incidents that led to you being discharged from the military. Is that right?
Yes.
And it stems from a single evening. Is that right?
Yes.
And that was, that occurred in August of 2015. Does that sound right?
Yes.
So I want to walk through what happened on that night. Can you explain to us how the evening started?
Anna had gotten a part-time job at this local bar right outside of the base called Chaos. She was a bartender. So in order to hang out with her, I would hang out there frequently. But we talking about this night specifically?
Yes.
So they had a special party. It was called a foam party where they had machines blowing suds and water. The floor is soaking wet. I wasn't prepared for this. I was wearing my sneakers and they were soaking wet. Emerald also was helping out that day for the party. So I had been drinking. There were lots of shots of different kinds, tequila. Yeah, I wasn't very drinking savvy to know like what you don't mix. There was also this Japanese beverage called the Chuhai, which is like a Alka-Seltzer alcohol beverage. I was drinking that while taking shots, and next thing you know, I am spinning. I can't even see straight without the feeling of wanting to throw up. So I just naturally lay my head down on a table.
Were you alone at this point at the table, or was somebody else with you at the table?
I believe there was somebody sitting to the left of me, but I don't know. But Anna was working, Emerald was working. Those are who I was hanging out with. My buddy Kalen was there too, but he was talking to this girl. So it was just me. And next thing you know, the boss of the owner of the bar is freaking out. Get him out of here! This is embarrassing. He's yelling at Anna. Get him out of here! This is embarrassing. Blah 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 blah. So Anna assists me to get up and leave the place. Emerald, also assists me. So I can barely walk because if I lift my head, I feel like I'm going to throw up. So Anna had my right arm. Emerald had my left arm. We had to go down a flight of steps that were no grip, just pure tiles. And even the sidewalks in Japan is like maroon, brick-colored tiles, very smooth, no grip. And I slipped forward. And I pulled Anna with me, and she hurt her knees.
Did you take Emerald down?
No, I fell off of Emerald. So I kind of just fell like this.
Did you push Anna down the stairs?
No, we were past the stairs. This is just on the sidewalk. I slipped, and I brought down Anna with me.
So you denied pushing her down or dragging her down to the ground that night?
No. I mean, I deny it, yes.
You did you ever hit Emerald or swing at her at any point at this point?
No, so when that happened, I apologized. I'm like, I'm sorry, Anna, I'm sorry. She's like, what the hell? That hurt, blah, 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 blah. Emerald started screaming, you pushed her. And Anna's like, stop, Emma, shut up, stop. Keep in mind, there's a group of military people coming in and out of this bar. I mean, this is a busy street. And next thing you know, it goes from, you pushed her, to you hit her. And next thing you know, there's this group of guys walking up to me like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, no. She's my girlfriend. She slipped. They didn't want to hear it. Next thing you know, I'm getting my ass beat by 5 or 6 dudes. I'm talking just left, right. I don't know, left, right, up, down. Every time I get up, they were slamming me on the ground. I mean, I was swinging back to the best of my abilities. But I was so disoriented. I didn't know what was going on. So now there's this whole scene. And I'm talking about 5 or 6 guys. And it's not an exaggeration. Next thing you know, I guess at some point, there was a couple, an African-American couple. And the woman pulls out her phone with the flash. And she starts filming. She goes, World Star, which is like basically what people scream to instigate a fight. And Anna goes, stop, you're going to get them in trouble. And she grabs, Anna's a sweetheart. She doesn't think like, don't do that, But she covered her phone camera. And the girl goes, bitch, get the fuck off me, and punches her right in her fucking face. And I saw this. And I look at her, I'm like, don't you fucking touch her, bitch. And that's when her boyfriend was like, hey, that's my girl, homie, blah, 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 blah. And boom, now guy number 7 is beating the shit out of me. So it was a whole fucking thing. I don't know.
Jackson, sustain next point. The answer will stand in this question.
So this has now occurred where there was a fight. You have been being beaten up by 5 or 6 men. There is an incident with Anna and a woman recording it, where Anna gets hit by this woman after Anna touched her phone or tried to cover her phone. And the next thing you know, that girl's boyfriend is now in the melee. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. What happened next?
At this point, it's too chaotic. My shirt was completely torn off. I mean, I was a mess. I managed to run to my car, which was literally right there. I opened the door, and I'm trying to get the key in the ignition, and these guys opened all 4 doors. I'm literally getting punched from all seats of the car, all 4 doors of the car, and my blood is splattering on the steering wheel. At this point, they backed off a little bit. And I'm looking at Anna, I'm like, come on, get in the car, let's get the fuck out of here, come on. And Emma's like, don't you fucking get in that car. And Anna's just like, what should I do? So Anna hops in the passenger seat. Next thing you know, Emerald hops in the back seat. And this guy that I had never seen the whole night, I knew who he was. His name's Jackie. He's also in the Air Force.
Let me stop you there. Is that Jacoria Sims who came in and testified at the trial?
Yeah, he identified me. He introduced himself as Jackie. That's what we call him.
So then what happened after now the car has you in the driver's seat?
I'm in the driver's seat. I'm trying to leave.
Anna's in the front passenger seat?
Yes.
And in the back now is Emerald and
Jacoris. I'll call him Jacoris.
What happened next?
So I notice Emma's there, and keep in mind, in my mind, I'm thinking she started this. Like, you have the audacity to hop in my car and say, "Take me home," and then who the fuck's this guy? Where the fuck did he come? I'm like, get the fuck out of my car. I'm screaming, I'm raging, I'm blacked out drunk. Get the fuck out of my car. He gets out of the car, she gets out of the car, he slams the car. It almost felt like it wanted to shatter the window, right? In my anger, I hopped out of the car. I was like, don't fucking slam my door. I walk up to him with my fist raised. I go to take a swing. I slip again. I slip in front of everybody. Everybody's laughing. I never touched it. I never even got close enough to make contact with them. I slipped and fell. It was embarrassing. At that point, Anna got out of the car. I hopped in the car. Police were arriving. Security forces were arriving. I drove off by myself.
Did you punch Chikori's? Did you ever land a punch on him?
No.
Did he land a punch on you?
No.
Did you call him a racially charged name?
No, I did not.
Eventually, you were interviewed or gave a statement to military forces related to this, or security forces related to this incident. Is that right?
Yeah, so my phone got a call from BDOC, which is Base Defense Operations Center. It's kind of like, you know where they do dispatch, 911, what's your emergency? It's like that center. They called me because obviously I work with them. They have my direct number. They said, Abulaban, you need to report yourself to BDOC. There was a report of an assault off base. We need you to come in for questioning. At the time, I was denying it. What do you mean? I'm playing Xbox, blah, blah.
Overruled at this point, but I'm going to stop you. We are going to take a 10-minute recess.
Okay, yes, sir. Do I stand?